Hi everyone, Mark here again from Universal Asylum, just out here in the forest and that, next to some little psilocybe subs. Um, I guess I thought that, I might do a little bit of a follow-up video on, in relation to, um, I guess, Psychosocial Anonymous as my sort of adaptation to 12-step fellowships that sort of can be applied by, I guess, really in a generalistic manner to anyone, as I guess, a psychotherapeutic sort of framework for self-analysis and personal development. And I thought or realised that I possibly failed to acknowledge the potential to use or the potential role to incorporate psychedelics into, I guess, as a component of, that, or the more introspective reflection and that side of, that program. Now, for those who aren't aware, Bill W., the founder of AA, actually was considering incorporating or including psychedelics such as LSD as a part of the 12-step, I've read, as some people have said, as the 13th step, the original 13th step of the 12-step program. And that was after his experiences with LSD and belladonna in clinical settings, which he had, or from which, or by which he had, I guess what he referred to as spiritual experiences. He saw the light and the bright colours, and as far as my understanding, Bill W. saw... Fuck's sake! Let's have a fart and shit. Of course, if I was some big fucking capitalist cunt with shitloads of money, I'd be able to afford a proper fucking camera stand, but I can't. So Bill W., after his experiences with LSD and belladonna, which I guess he looked at in more of a spiritual sense, in terms of, his spiritual awakening, so to speak. He saw the potential for, I guess, substances such as LSD and other psychedelics to, I guess, be used for what he called sort of hard cases, for people who were having trouble with the spiritual side of the program and concepts of, in relation to concepts such as God and spirit worlds and things like that. Now, in some ways, the concept of God is one of the things that I very much struggled with the AA program right from the beginning. I associated God with religion, which was something that I'd been very wary of and warned of as a kid. However, I did find the AA program was unlike religions in the sense it did not have a hierarchy, and it was a lot more open-minded and less judgmental in many respects. It sort of was more encouraging people to, yes, look inwards and, apply certain principles to analysing themselves and, I guess then practicing the opposite and trying to practice what they considered spiritual principles, basically practicing the opposite of, where there's fear, practice courage, where you're selfish. What's the cure for being a selfish cunt? Fucking working with others and trying to practice non-selfishness, all of that sort of stuff, and practicing patience and tolerance and consideration and all of that type of stuff. And then they had their aspect of, prayer and meditation. Now, some of that gets a bit like, what word would I use? It's that's certainly one of the things where it's AA is often critiqued from a clinical perspective. I actually bought my little Buddha, like the oh my god Buddha. Like I actually created him as part of, before I'd ventured into exploring the therapeutic value of psychedelics and or forbidden fruit of different natures. Like I very much, that was my little totem. If I was going to have a god, so to speak, I wasn't going to have a fucking prude god. I was going to have like a fucking god with a nice big fat fucking cock who fucking knew what to do with it. Yeah, there's nothing spiritual about fucking, we were born with fucking dicks and tits and things like that for reasons, and I guess, I question any religion that, tries to use guilt and shame to, convince you that having a cock is, there's something wrong with having a cock and enjoying it and, all of that sort of stuff. So look, I do see the value. I have had many spiritual, very interesting, some of the things that I have encountered whilst on psychedelics. We know that they do, like I've been saying, they are a nutrient, not a drug. They're a form of sustenance that switches on the brain, and perhaps there is, I guess extra senses that we aren't, we're yet to study because science is forbidden from studying these things. It'd be very interesting there's a lot of interesting tests I can think of or have thought of over the last few years, if I actually had access to, proper, I guess, medical style equipment, etc. And like I've sort of mentioned before, yes, there is that potential of it bringing us in, that introspective reflection, the fact that these induce a state of consciousness that is not only hyper-reparative in what I've mainly spoken to in physical terms, but also in psychological terms as they are more commonly I guess, spoken to within psychedelic sort of scenes, and I guess, also some of the science that is looking at it, is all generally centered around the psychological value. And look, I certainly see a massive potential, a bit, in further respect. Or in addition to what I saw the value, say, I'm really not wording myself well. Bill W. saw these as a way of getting people to believe in God or whatever. And yes, I have encountered things that I cannot explain. I remember on DMT, I fucking had this DMT and I fucking was confronted by this spiritual being. Now, this isn't me being crazy. I'll be quite open about it. A common normal reaction for someone consuming DMT is to often be confronted with these spiritual type interactive entities. If you look at any of Strassman's work, any of the scientific, hardcore research in this, they've found it very... One of the interesting thing is the consistency by which people report these encounters with these interactive entities, so to speak. I remember coming across one and it's quite... my mate put it like... It's weird in such realms, it's not always... like the communication can be clear. How my friend Gab put it was, it's not as if they necessarily communicate in words. It's like communicating through the sound of a taste of a colour, which I think is a very fucking good, very good description of something. Anyway, I found this. I come across many entities throughout my I guess ventures into exploring the therapeutic value of these things. And, I've got my own theories of what different entities may be. Sometimes I wonder whether some of the things that we are confronted with in these experiences are actually going internal and being confronted by, say, the spirit. A lot of it's talked to in spiritual senses, but being confronted by, I guess, forms of sickness and stuff like that, which would explain some of the variation. When I had the experience with the viral meningitis, that was almost like a living infection inside of me that needed to be expelled. Um, so if you look at things as being alive as, that's a foreign living entity inside, or lifelike entity, perhaps that is an explanation of these, some of these entities. Perhaps, when you look at some of the reports or the consistency of reports, anyone who's taken things like acid or mushrooms, it's very commonly, massive, commonly reported of people when they take these substances in groups experiencing like synchronicity and stuff like that, which, I guess suggests the possibilities that, perhaps there is some form of collective consciousness and stuff that we're yet to understand. I mean, I don't know. I do find it, however, extremely interesting that, that I have to experience these types of things and the consistency by which these experiences are reported. Now, once upon a time, I never believed. I thought, life started when you were born or before you were born when, like, I guess when the seed entered the egg or fucking so on. And, then once you died, I thought life was out, like lights were out. That's what I always believed. And, as I've grown older, I don't know that I believe that anymore. I really don't know. Like things like I felt my father die. I fucking felt that. I was several miles away and I felt that, and I cannot explain that. And I'm not the first person in the world to say that. It's frequently reported that people feel parents and loved ones passings. I've never felt that feeling before in my life, and I knew from that moment, I fucking knew something was wrong. It was an awful feeling that come over me, absolutely hideous. And then I started ringing, and it took several days until I had the time to go and check, and sure enough, he died. And the coroner placed his time of death for that afternoon that I had that experience. I can't explain that, so perhaps there is, at risk of sounding crazy, at least I'm open-minded enough to go, well, science hasn't been allowed to study this stuff yet, so, the anecdotal evidence, which is actually fucking evidence, it is across the board frequently reported. Perhaps there is some form of spiritual realm and collective consciousness. I don't really know, but where I see the massive therapeutic value of things like psilocybin mushrooms and stuff like that incorporated into a program, like a dynamic program of ongoing self-analysis and self-adjustment, is their ability to facilitate introspective reflection that is in an extremely efficient manner that is unencumbered by the parameters of ego. These enable you to basically, when you look at a brain scan of people on psilocybin mushrooms or LSD, their brain lights up like a light globe. These actually enable you to access that other 90% of your brain, or, a large percentage of that. It's almost as if they enable you to put, basically empty out your entire consciousness, all of your past memories and repressed memories, and fucking put it all out on the table at once and fucking examine it in a manner that's not, I guess, where your ego doesn't interfere with it, and take an honest look at yourself, and sometimes swallow. These things will make you swallow really hard truths about yourself. I think, you know, often people, these are thought of too much. I don't like the term recreational drug, or the fact that these are most people I've found do not use these recreationally. They use them as tools. And that's not to say, look, if someone's healthy and young and, whatever, like, they can be enjoyable. And there's this idea in society as well that everything has to be fucking, you're not allowed to enjoy anything. Like, well, we've got to make the medicine so they can't feel it. If we're going to give people marijuana, we can't have them feeling it. We better stop them. Like, if they, what the fuck's wrong with, if people, and look, I totally respect the fact that there might be some people who don't want to experience that. The problem with some of the science that I've found in relation to these type of psychedelics is they want to stop the experience. It's like, you can't switch the brain on without switching the brain on. The psychedelic experience is part of the parcel of how these things work. And that's not to say there might not be other ways that they can be utilised. However, I think it is, limiting them, or, aiming too exclusively, I guess, remove certain aspects of the way they function is selling short the potential value these have to offer people. Now, I'm going to also go very against the grain in terms of in the company of a qualified professional psychologist, because what these medical institutions, they want a patent, right? So you can go to the psychologist, and the psychologist is a little gatekeeper who gives you some magic mushrooms and sits there and pretends he's a fucking expert about your world. Now look, me, from my experience using, I guess, 12-step fellowships as a self-driven form of platform for self-development, as well as my studies into social work, which always encouraged, I guess, the client remaining the expert of themselves. No, you will always be limited with the amount of information that a client can provide you, and your understanding will always be to some extent limited. The person themselves always, and that doesn't mean they don't have blocks to understanding. This fear will create all kinds of complex forms of denial and stuff like that, which these substances, offer a great potential value in helping to unpack. Like they... fucking nutty. Yeah, however, even those fears in themselves and communication barriers, I mean, those fears in themselves can be a communication barrier in themselves. Also, I guess, the therapist's fucking ability to think of the right questions to ask, all of that sort of stuff can be, challenging. That's not to say, look, it's not to say that I don't believe in some cases that, working with therapists surrounding these substances may not necessarily have some value. There is value for therapists. However, it's back to that same old argument of teaching a man to fish as opposed to giving a man, or a human, or a fucking woe man, or fucking, if we're going to get all fucking, oh no, he said man, big fucking cry, fucking, like, mankind, it's fucking, like, I even go fucking, I call women man. Hey man, I don't know, fucking, why am I even thinking about that shit? Trying to be all fucking politically fucking correct and shit, sitting here in front of some fucking mushrooms. Yes, the point is, I do not believe limiting these to little gatekeeper fucking therapists. I think that is extremely limiting their value. This is something that needs to be, is probably best integrated into therapeutic approaches for people's self-development. You know, if you look at, there are so many issues with trying to, what, we're going to make it prohibition. Prohibition, got to have little gatekeepers so Mr. Psychologist can make some money because he's got the patent. Nah, fuck off, that's bullshit. What you're going to do is you're going to create more black market fucking problems. You're going to create an ecological disaster because people actually, the more and more people are finding that these things actually work, the more demand there becomes and the more stress that places upon the environment, as well as the more dangers there become, particularly with pieces of shit like Zuckerberg. Now, I noticed this whole fucking fucking censor shit. Like the most responsible group I ever fucking come across on, most mature and most responsible group on Facebook I ever come across was the Australian and New Zealand psilocybin mushrooms identification group. The original one. Massive wealth of knowledge, extremely mature and responsible people. Now the biggest danger of magic mushrooms is, one, getting fucking caught with them. Yeah, these have a massive penalties attached to them. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, I can eat a fucking ounce of magic mushrooms and roll around in the bed and heal. You know. However, an ounce of magic mushrooms has the same fucking penalty as an ounce of heroin. You know, when you consider an ounce of heroin, my friend died on $12.50 worth of heroin. Like, an ounce of heroin has the potential to kill fucking 400 people. You know, I can eat a whole fucking ounce. You know, the main problems associated with, the other biggest danger, aside from getting caught with them and doing 10 years fucking jail, is if you eat a mushroom that isn't a magic mushroom. Because magic mushrooms are non-toxic. However, there are very similar mushrooms that are fucking deadly. You know, which I guess, particularly whilst we've got idiot policy, like censorship policy, which is shutting down mature, responsible groups who were, like, there was no very clear communication. As soon as you start censoring things, you create an environment where people start talking in codes, and then you've got new people who can't understand the codes because we're not adults and we're not allowed to speak in English because fucking we've got Mr. fucking Mark Zuckerberg, the fucking censorship police, which says you're not even our community standards. Our community standards aren't about, Facebook community standards aren't about creating a safe environment. They're about what? Control, dominance. You're not allowed to say cunt. You're not allowed to have an adult conversation about adult topics. You know, these are topics that should be safe. For them to be safely discussed, they need to be freely discussed. These are something that really should be produced in a safe, controlled fucking manner and made, basically reintegrated into society. And that's something that needs to happen in an efficient manner. You know, and I'm not 100% sure the best way to, how do you do that? How do you train people up to, train people up? Do you do it on a permit system? I don't believe these permits should be particularly difficult to obtain, but, should people need to be able to, or, should there be a system where people do so many supervised trips before, they get their fucking psilocybin license and stuff like that, and then have some, rules and guidelines, realistic rules and guidelines surrounding their use. For me, like, when I use things like magic mushrooms, I don't generally take much less than a 5-gram dose. A good old Terence McKenna, five dry grams of, our subs are the strongest psilocybin mushrooms in the world, apparently. But yeah, 5 dry grams of psilocybin mushrooms alone in silent darkness. Now, these experiences aren't always pleasant. It is fucking hard work. Like, personally, I'm not going to go, I am not suggesting people to go out and break the law. What I am suggesting is the governments need to review these laws, because these laws are fucking absurd. These laws are wrong. And if we are to understand these substances offer extreme therapeutic value to our society. And I also understand the implications of, where the government's fear of not being able to control people, comes from. However, I am doing my best to, in attempting to offer, with Universal Asylum, an alternate social structure that provides stability whilst embracing diversity, as well as provides things like psychotherapeutic platforms which enable people to self-regulate, far more efficient and I guess accurate. If you provide a good standardized platform for people to look at themselves honestly, because we all develop our own, although we've got similarities in the way we respond to fear and the types of, unhealthy, counterproductive and sometimes destructive, psychological and behavioural responses we develop in response to fear. We have some very typical patterns in the ways in which we develop such responses, and they can be self-analysed basically with the same sort of platform. And then use that into developing, using these to sort of break down. And the thing is, these won't turn around and they won't make you go, oh, the ocean isn't dying. These will make you think, oh, fuck. These will make you choke on the fucking, like the vomit, choke and throw up. I mean, I've thrown up on the putridness of my fucking soul at times, or, and not that I'm particularly a bad person. However, I have, like everyone, I have the potential to behave in negative ways. Like, these things won't tell you that the ocean isn't dying, but they will fucking make you look at your fucking self and see how you are contributing to the ocean fucking dying. Whether that be through your fucking consumeristic fucking bullshit, or your fucking or habit type stuff, or whether it be through your passiveness and failing to stand up to the system and push for greater social change, which is something that I am very much attempting to do and offer with Universal Asylum. So they're not like a typical antidepressant that numbs you out to reality. These very much force you to face reality. However, they do it in a manner that basically allows your brain to sort of rewire itself psychologically a little bit. Some people go, oh, one dose and they were less depressed, and like this idea that we've got to have one fucking dose so we're not depressed, so we can go back to work and keep consuming and fucking keep being a part of the thing that's going to fucking lead to the death of our fucking shit, putrid fucking species, really within our lifetimes, or within the next fucking generation, if we don't seriously fucking take a good fucking look at ourselves and fucking change what we're doing, how we fucking live. And I guess for me, as far as my use, there is a lot of potential. Like, what's more dangerous, or what's a bigger problem? Like, for me, I actually find it, like, I'm better off with no guidance, than the wrong sort of guidance, which is pretty fucking standard for most aspects of life. However, I found, I got my brother to come and trip sit for my first proper ayahuasca, and that just interfered with my experience. Like, it was like I switched on my consciousness, and like I couldn't get past his energy in the background. Even though, like, he wasn't doing much. He was trying to do his best to be quiet, but he was fucking around on the computer, and I could feel his energy. And it interfered with the whole thing, like, there are, you know, considerations, it might seem nice to go out and take these in a natural environment, and it can be. However, there's considerations that, natural environments can be quite hostile. I mean, I had my first DMT experience on a fucking surf beach, like, I could have fucking drowned. Like, it was, look, I don't regret it. It was a fucking, look, I was quite sick at the time. We, like, went hard on, like, it was my first, like, full-on DMT experience. I'd done plenty of acid when I was young and stuff, but this was, like, full-on. And, we went hard on the fucking ice and fucking, on the beers and the fucking bongs and, like, fucking, it gave me enough to see the potential therapeutic value of the DMT. However, I was doing everything else fucking wrong. But I mean, the DMT was powerful enough to at least fucking show me some of its worth, and that very interesting. Oh, that's right. That's the story I was going to mention. Like, yeah, so the massive potential in terms of introspective reflection unencumbered by the parameters of ego, and using that reflection in, what do they call it, integrating that into your life and making changes and stuff like that, which I try to do. However, I see the value of, I see there's many lessons in life and the value of ongoing use of these substances, and in providing, incorporating that, I guess, into ongoing self-analysis and self-adjustment, or personal, throughout our personal development and whatnot. The story I was going to tell was back to, like, Bill W's, like, spiritual experience and helping people believe in God and stuff like that. Anyway, I fucking, like, I remember having this massive hit of fucking DMT, right? And I fucking was confronted with this, like, entity, right? And I'm fucking, like, like I said before, like Gab's fucking, description through the sound of the taste of a colour sort of thing. I was confronted with this entity anyway, right? And I fucking, basically, I'm like, are you one of these god cunts, right? And it's fucking, like, it's fucking didn't really know how to fucking respond to that. It's sort of staunched up and I'm like, before it could respond, I was a bit like, no, I think, like, people have got you wrong. And it sort of, it went from being a little bit like, fucking who the fuck are you little cunt, like, to, alright, hear you out. And I can't remember, I'll have to look back over my notes to what happened in the middle, because I think I missed bits out of this story, as, this was, possibly over 5 years ago, and, yeah, I possibly acknowledge some of the ways that that misunderstanding of, people having gods wrong, or, like, basically, like, people have been talking shit about the gods and fucking, so acknowledge some of how things had gone, the mess we were in. And then, like, I went through a stage where, like, I asked, if there was anything, like, it occurred to me, like, I was in his house, I'd rocked up at his joint, and, perhaps, like we were in separate realms, and perhaps there was stuff, like, I'm like, oh, I don't know, is there anything you can do to help me? And then, like, before he could respond, I'm like, oh, like, it occurred to me that maybe, like, his or its powers were, there was a limitation in the crossover, like what I could do in his world, and what he could do in mine. And, was there anything? So I corrected myself. I felt like a selfish cunt. And I'm like, so I've asked what he can do for me. And I'm like, oh, fuck, is there anything I can do for you, sort of thing. And I can't really remember where it cut out. It was interesting, like the level of power of this thing, like these, like in there. It was like it could snap you in fucking half, but it just didn't. And every, like, remember like being very intrigued throughout those early experiences, and it was like it fitted every. This makes sense with, say, ideas of heaven and hell, and an all powerful and all loving, all knowing gods. It's like you cannot bullshit them in there. If they decide to tell you fucking off, you know, when you take these and these decide to give you a fucking lesson, it's not like you rock up to gods and, you know, they give you like a fucking hand job and a fucking bunch of flowers and make you fucking feel better and shit. Like, these will make you fucking, these will confront your deepest and darkest shadows and make you look at yourself. You know, however, it's like the all loving, all knowing, all powerful, like, you know, could snap you in like hard but fair. You know, like, yeah, it fuck. But when it shows you your fucking most putrid aspects of yourself, like, that can be very confronting. However, it is always in a loving way. You know, despite the fact that that can be almost, well, it can be fucking extremely terrifying and frightening. You know, the realms that these take you in, whether they're internal, you know, and that's possible that it's purely internal. It's possible that it, you know, perhaps links you into some form of a collective consciousness and stuff like that. You know, I have to remain open to those possibilities. I mean, according to science, apparently, you know, we've detected sonar abilities in dolphins and stuff like that. We're very similar to dolphins, and, you know, we know that dolphins actually pass the pufferfish and stuff like that. And, you know, there are, you know, certain other sea fish that contain DMT. There are lichens that, or however the fuck you say it, that contain, actually, I think there's one that contains DMT and psilocybin. You know, these substances are throughout the ocean. You know, so I guess I'm open to the possibility that, you know, humans are potentially, you know, capable of things that we do not understand yet. And the moment that science is actually allowed to study these things, and that we're actually allowed not just send people to war and give them some mushrooms so they feel better about war, we need to be using these to heal the people and to prevent the war in the first place. We need to be using these. You don't give people, it's like, look, I've got a fucking substance, right? I've got science saying this is anti-fucking cancer, anti-tumor, antiviral, neuroregenerative, right? And you want to what? Only give them to people at the end of life to make them feel better about the fact that they're dying from cancer. That is fucking retarded. Like, sorry, I shouldn't use. Look, I'm on a disability pension, so I've sort of reserved the right to fucking call myself retarded. I don't know whether it's right to call everyone else retarded, but whatever. Yeah, it's fucking. Oh, you fucking complete dumb cunts. Like, let's fucking let's, instead of using something that has the potential to fucking act as a fucking anti-fucking cancer, you know, when consumed regularly, and the only way these can provide those anti-cancer function is if they are those functions are at a cellular level. You know, these are that provide benefits in those earliest stages of cancer that we cannot detect. You know, we have detected, you know, I don't profess to understand exactly how the science works to say anti-cancer, antiviral, anti-this. Like, my experience with these substances, I do understand. I don't doubt any of that science. So, but like, I don't like profess to understand like the full breakdown. You know, they're more looking at it under the microscope, individual. You know, I've got all different sciences looking at individual components of this. I'm looking at it more of a bird's eye from my experience and using all that science to go, no, it's not a fucking drug. This is a fucking nutrient. You know, and if we want to take advantage of its anti-cancer properties, we need to be consuming these regularly, most likely on a weekly basis. Like, say, like ayahuasca is often used in traditional tribal contexts. You know, so I guess to as a means of facilitating, or taking full advantage of all of that stuff, it makes sense to incorporate the full spectrum of the therapeutic value of substances such as DMT and psilocybin and, other forbidden fruits into, like, reintegrate that into regular consumption, and I guess as a component of a psychotherapeutic, taking advantage of those, psychotherapeutic or psychological value of these, the introspective reflections that, or states of consciousness that these substances induce makes sense, and then some of those, get a little bit, whatchamacallit, a bit fucking stiff. Then those, I guess it's almost like hitting two birds with one stone. The greatest learning experiences that I have found has been through taking these substances whilst incredibly unwell. And that has psychological benefits too. But that has been one of the biggest, my biggest learning about these things. And I think we do need to start really looking at that, at applying these to actual sick people. And that will be, we are understanding of fucking human beings once we allow science, which is what I'm demanding governments to sign over all rights, and authorities relating to DMT and other forbidden fruit, to explore the full spectrum of, I guess, the holistic therapeutic value that these offer our species, and how to go about reintegrating that into society, with consideration of the complex social implications that these, doing so has, like I've, said in the past, these have the potential. If you've got a substance that has the potential to put physios out of business, has the potential to put the pharmaceutical business out of business, fucking 1.27 billion US dollars. That's like, must be about trillion fucking dollars. That must be about 2 trillion fucking Aussie dollars for the world fucking pharmaceutical market. But these have the potential to get rid of a lot of those medicines that don't have fuck all science behind them. Some people are going to want to kill me over that. However, when you look at the broader, I guess, to rule a lot of those medicines obsolete is better for everyone. It's better for our environment, and I guess, when you look at the potential for these to free up our social capital, I mean, that, has the potential to put a lot of people out of business. However, I guess the other side of Universal Asylum, offering an alternate social structure and looking at reform of all of our systems, including our economic systems, and creating an environment where basically people are going to be okay. Creating an environment where it's okay if your roles become obsolete because we have a more adaptive, social structure that looks after everyone and doesn't leave people fucked. That way we will free up enough, that way, I don't, will we? We're running a bit of a ticking time clock in respect to our ageing population, but at least that way we have the potential to free up enough, of our human capital to potentially, look after our ageing population in a humane and ethical fashion. Also, if we wish to do that, we need substances available that are going to heal people. We don't need to be wastefully putting people in jail who are trying to heal themselves by using these substances. These can be incorporated, so I'm not encouraging people to go out and use these substances. The cat is well and truly out of the bag here. What I'm offering is I am applying to governments. I'm telling governments that you are fucking completely out of line. There is a massive case for aggravated criminal negligence for the fact that science isn't allowed to study these, despite the science all over my fucking website. The legislation is wrong. That needs to change, and this needs to be studied like fucking pronto, comprehensively, in an efficient and comprehensive manner, to look at how these can be, I guess, explored in terms of their holistic therapeutic value they offer, and how that can be best reintegrated into society. And a component of that, like I'm saying, and like where I started with this video was, in respect to their massive psychological values. And I guess part of the problem with that, and I guess where you might need some training and stuff like that, like what these therapists, so what, you're going to get a therapist who hasn't taken fucking magic mushrooms to try and professional psychologists to fucking like help them understand what happened when they were on magic mushrooms. Like, that's fucking stupid. Like, and look, there is the abstract nature of some of the experiences that these substances facilitate, like that. That I guess needs to be looked at with an open mind. If you start like, it's difficult, and I can see like how, like I try not to take too seriously some of the things that I've encountered. I have encountered numerous entities at times whilst on these substances. However, one thing I've found which fits with my one of my many theories, that perhaps some of these, an explanation for some of these entities is, I guess, forms of sickness that we may be carrying within ourselves, is the fact that the more that I've consumed these substances, the less that I've confronted certain entities. And it is very interesting. This has an explanation. These substances do provide an explanation of like the intricacy of the realms in which, like, these, they fit every aspect of heaven and hell. So like the realm, fits all descriptions of heaven and hell, and like the entities with which you are often reported to be encountered within these realms is, fit the profiles of I guess, descriptions of gods, and with those all-loving, all-powerful, all-knowing entities that have the power to snap you in half, but fucking they're hard but fair. But I mean, having said that, if it's another explanation to it being all loving and all knowing, is perhaps it's just you, perhaps it is just a full mirror reflection of your fucking consciousness. So of course you can't, like, if it's you, of course it fucking knows everything about you because it's fucking you. It's just removing those, I guess, ego type blocks, or ego type, ego-driven sort of forms of denial and stuff like that. It removes it, and then like you look at yourself in the mirror and go, oh fuck, yeah, I'm a bit of a cunt, aren't I? What are we going to do about that? Can I really live with myself if I keep being a cunt? All of that kind of stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, in the sense, there is massive problems with having, like, psychologists who don't have experience, or at least lie and say they don't have experience with these things, being the gatekeepers to them so they can capitalise on them. So many fucking problems with that. It's not fucking funny. Fuck. Where else was I going to wrap up with that? And I guess also the potential for, on top of that, not only, the problems of it being used in a therapeutic sense with people who don't have any fucking experience with it, is also the potential for the psychiatric industry. 9 times out of 10, the best thing to do if someone's having a challenging experience, and these experiences can be very challenging. There's nothing, like, it is, look, if we were to scientifically prove that it would be the best thing for everyone to eat these once a week, most people would find it challenging to eat these once a week. if we proved 100% that if you eat magic mushrooms once a fucking week, that you won't get cancer, like, and went, nah, that's a really good idea, Mark. Fucking, like, you try and get every cunt in the world to eat these fucking things once a week. It is hard fucking work, man. They can induce extremely challenging experiences that, although are very therapeutic, are fucking hard work. It's hard fucking work, and it's hard to face yourself, despite being good for you. So I don't think, like, I think even if you did, like, make these freely available and encourage their use, not that I'm doing that, I'm just pointing out the fact that the cat is out of the fucking bag here, and not, like, we need to actually seriously fucking look at this. It would be irresponsible for governments to continue fucking repressing the science, continue avoiding and trying to use authoritarian approaches to suppressing that. Absolutely fucking irresponsible. Irresponsible socially, unethical on so many fucking levels, and also extremely unethical and irresponsible in terms of, the potential to create an environmental disaster. So I think, it is something that needs to be looked at pronto, and I think I didn't finish the sentence, but yeah, that other, I guess, approaching it with an open mind, because of that potential, with the abstract nature of these experiences for, people to, I guess, people start talking about, like, ooh, gods and, different things like that, it becomes, the psycho, that's scary, he's psychotic, we better put him on these pills so he goes, even though it's okay for church to talk about fucking God and fucking, accuse kids that, threaten kids that they're going to set them on, that God's going to set them on fire and they're going to burn in hell if they touch their cock. That's okay. We're allowed. That's fine. Like, they're good, productive members of society. We'll let them, but, like, they're allowed to have their God. But, the thing is, a normal response to, like, having DMT or these things is, when I'm not under, I haven't encountered an entity on these things. I think the last entity-like being that I encountered was a couple of years ago when I, in the experience when I expelled the viral meningitis. However, that entity, although it had lifelike appearances, it was more like mucousy eggs. There was no actual, like, creature with arms or anything. It was basically like fucking gremlins eggs. Like fucking mucousy, fucking, I don't know whether they were moving at all, but it just, my recollection of that, they were like, there was a lifeness about it, so perhaps they were moving, but they were also mucousy, very dark, very, very challenging experience. But, that was the closest thing to an entity I've encountered in a long time. As a result of consuming substances such as DMT or mushrooms, but I don't know. I don't know if I should worry about, like, get all scared and politically correct, or I guess I'm trying to fucking speak openly about this experience. I don't know if any of the other stuff that I talk about actually makes fucking sense, like the fact that our ocean is dying and we need to actually change our fucking ways. And, I think I'm pretty fucking rational in most respects. I don't profess to fully have figured out these substances. However, at their most basic fucking level, these are a nutrient. That is specific to the central nervous system, and in addition to facilitating, powerful autoimmune responses, is also facilitate I guess, massive introspective reflection and stuff like that, which can be incorporated into personal development. And, you know, not only necessarily as a component of, say, a framework like 12-step style frameworks. I have actually seen one, like there is a group that I actually joined recently. I think it's Psychedelics in Recovery, and where I'm uncomfortable there is I don't feel like they've changed some of the steps, but they've changed the wording in manners that I do feel loses some of the value of what they originally started with. I haven't had much to do with the group because I haven't been able to figure out how to log in at the right time to participate in their meetings and stuff like that. So I don't. This is at a glance just my understanding of 12-step fellowships, being someone else who is, providing an alternate modification. However, my modification I've put in, yes, it does challenge some of their original concepts of how they use the word God, and applies, does its best to apply, you know, recognised therapeutic, accepted therapeutic understandings of how those processes work, in a manner that you can still read the original literature which uses the word God, and sort of, I guess, based on the understandings of how they use that, it's sort of, yeah. So it maintains compatibility with the original literature, and that's where I feel psychedelics in recovery, or whatever, 12 steps in psychedelics, or psychedelics in 12 steps, or however the fuck they fucking named it, which I still feel what they're doing is great. Yes, I'm very much in the same boat. I'm someone who, I don't fit with NA because I'm not. I refuse. It would be dishonest of me to pretend that these substances are a drug. They are non-addictive. I'm not going to say I'm addicted to something that I'm not fucking addicted to. It's a contradiction of your program. These are different to the drugs that I've experienced in my life. These have never caused me any harm. I trust these. These are a massive, invaluable tool for introspective reflection. These, once upon a time, I could honestly, once upon a time, AA was the only fucking, the 12 steps of AA and NA and stuff like that was the only thing that had ever helped me. The only thing I'd found, medicine had failed me, my own fucking, will, or my own fucking devices had failed me. I could not stay clean and sober, and AA and 12-step fellowships completely changed my life, and which was what, I guess, led to me going through university, and I guess developing my own adaptation to those programs. However, I honestly don't know what's helped me more, because I can't go back and not have my experience with 12-step fellowships. However, these have certainly helped me as much, possibly more. Maybe it's equal. I don't really know. However, I see massive potential value to incorporate the two, into personal development throughout time on an ongoing basis. And I'm not, like I've said, I'm not telling anyone to go out and do that. I'm telling the governments that I'm demanding fucking rights and fucking all rights and authorities over DMT and other forbidden fruit, so we can fully explore in an ethical and thorough manner their holistic therapeutic value. And yes, I do, in addition to all of the other physical therapeutic value that I see, there are ways that these can be incorporated into, I guess, my adaptation of 12-step fellowships, Psychosocial, Anonymous, fucking